Okay, this is Roger Williams that we serve with, and he works in the office. And his grandfather, correct? He has his grandfather's medals from World War I, and I just thought I'd have him just kind of explain those a little bit. He's originally from Belfast? No,
England.
England. Okay,
yes.
England.
Lancashire in England.
Lancashire, England, which is where our relatives are from. So, okay.
Okay. These medals were presented to my grandmother after the death of her husband on the Western Front in October 1915. This one especially is the medal for the 1914-1915 conflict that he fought in. He was 29 years of age when he went off to war. He enlisted in the British Army in February 1915, and he was killed in October 1915 at the Battle of Arras, which is one of the really early conflicts. He left behind a wife and 2 young children. They, of course, never saw their father again. He was a plumber by trade, and he lived in the town of Kendal, which is in what's called the Lake District in England. He originated from Dorset. He was a fisherman. His father was a fisherman, and his uncles and his brothers were all fishermen. And they moved up to Kendal because there was no work fishing. There was just no future in that. So he moved up to Kendal to the woolen mills where they made carpets and heavy-duty woolen clothing. And his father worked in there, and he was born in 1886. And so he went to war when he was 29, and unfortunately he didn't come back. So that's the history of George William Williams. With a name like that, he was a little bit difficult to find on the records. So I eventually found him after a painstaking search. He's buried in northern France, just near the town of Arras. There are cemeteries all over France to commemorate the dead, both of the British servicemen, Australian servicemen, American, and of course the German servicemen as well, who also fought and died in that terrible war. In 2016, I hope to go to France to visit his grave. So that's some history on my grandfather. I also have some medals here. I'll put my grandfather's down. These are my father's medals. My father fought in the Second World War, so I had a grandfather in the First World War, and my father was in the Second World War. My father fought in North Africa, he fought in Italy, and then he got a medal for serving in the British Army. My father was about 23 when he joined. He too was a plumber, the same as his father. And so he joined, and he was sent to North Africa, and he spent nearly 4 years. He joined in, I think it was January 1941, and he came out of the army in February 1945. So he was in for some time. He was severely wounded in North Italy, up near Monte Cassino, where he was in the Battle of Monte Cassino, where he was severely wounded. He was taken as a prisoner of war and taken to a prisoner of war camp in Germany. But he was too ill to stay in the camp, and so they moved him to a hospital. But unfortunately, the Germans at that time had very little left, and they had no medicines of any descriptions. My father's injuries just grew gradually worse, and to the end they had to amputate his leg. So which they did, and then they found, of course, he was no use to the services anymore. So it's a little known fact that the British and the Germans used to send home soldiers who were captured as prisoners of war. If they were unable to fight again, they would then send them home. The Red Cross was involved. My father was on the last boat out of Germany before the end of the war. He always said that he was the least injured of the people on the boat. Even though when he came off the boat he was on a stretcher because he'd just lost his leg. And so it took him some while to learn how to use crutches, and then sometime after that when he was given a prosthetic leg, which he used for the rest of his life. So that's my father and my grandfather. There's also another medal here. This is a service medal for serving in the Australian Defence Forces. So my father and my grandfather served in the British Defence Forces, and I served in the Australian Defence Forces. And this is because I served for a period of 9 years. I was in the Royal Australian Air Force. It was an exciting life. I served during peacetime, thankfully. There's been a lot of conflict since, but I served during peacetime. I served as an aircraft refueler, so when the aircraft came in, I would refuel the aircraft. It was exciting, and I thoroughly enjoyed that life. So that's a brief history of my father, my grandfather, and my father, three of us. But I've got some more medals here. These are what's called miniatures. You can see the difference. And the reason why I have these belong to my wife, Sister Williams, and these are her father's medals. Her father fought in the Second World War because he was an Australian, so he fought against the Japanese. And after the war finished, there was so much destruction in Japan with the 2 atomic bombs that went off. He was sent to clean up, and he went to, I think it was Nagasaki, he went to clean up. And so he was given a medal for going there, and he belongs to a very special group of soldiers called the British Commonwealth Occupational Forces, and they cleaned up Japan. They helped to clean up Japan. They were subject to radiation because they were working in the areas where the atomic bomb had fallen probably only 12 months before. Nobody knew anything about the effects of radiation. People thought it was just like an ordinary bomb that went off and that was it. But it lasted for many, many years. He was one of the few he didn't kill. He died from other natural causes. But lots of the troops who went and did that work eventually succumbed to radiation poisoning. So between Sister Williams and I, we both lost, through the wars, we both lost at least one grandfather and 2 fathers because of the stress of going to war. So that's my medals. And last Saturday I had the great pleasure on the 25th of April in marching in the Anzac 100 Years Anzac Day Parade in Sydney. It was a great big parade, longest I've ever walked in, but it was a great honour. I marched for my grandfather, I marched for my father, and I also marched for Sister Williams' father as well, who were all deceased, and I represented them in the march. Okay?
Okay.